Around here, we often say that when it comes to faith, we don't just talk about it, we be about it, because God's called us to do something with our faith. Today, we're breaking down Hebrews to see what it means to really walk it like you talk it. Welcome to Epic Everywhere, practical teaching to help you grow in your faith, no matter where you are on your spiritual journey. We're in week 2 of a new message series called For Sure. We'll continue to walk through Hebrews chapter 11 and learn that faith isn't about having all the answers, it's about trusting the one who is always faithful. So we've got a great day ahead. My name is Emily and I'm the pastor of Epic Online, and I want to give a special shout out to anyone who's new today. I'm so glad that you made it. Every time that we gather together, we take a moment just to check in. So you can go ahead and get your phone out if you don't have it out already. Checking in is helpful because it allows us to pray for you, it allows us to care for you, and it helps you to stay connected to some helpful resources throughout the week. Today, you can go ahead and check in by scanning the QR code or texting the keyword HERE to the number on the screen, 215-999-8575. And when you check in for the first time, we're going to send you your official 2025 Epic t-shirt right to your door just to say thanks for being here. So be sure to do that today. On today's Hub, you can find out what's happening around Epic, like all things Easter. Believe it or not, Easter is right around the corner. And what I love about Easter is that it's the most powerful and meaningful Sundays of the year. One of them, definitely. It's a time where we can pause and remember and celebrate what Jesus did for us on the cross. It's going to be good. And when you know something is good, you share all that goodness with people that you care about. So leading up to Easter, we want you to pray and plan. Pray for the people that you're inviting and then make a plan to show up with them. So let's be intentional not to miss the opportunity to share the hope of Jesus. Easter is going to be on Sunday, April 20th, and it'll be here soon. In addition to that, as a part of Easter week, we have a special Good Friday experience right here on YouTube. So we're going to have a song and reflection on the significance of Good Friday. We'll also be taking communion together. And I'm really praying that this Good Friday experience is going to be a really meaningful time for you to prepare your heart for Easter Sunday. All the details on everything can be found on the Hub or on our website, epic.church/Easter. Not only do we get to celebrate Easter soon, we also have our upcoming Philly Egg Hunt coming up. We love opportunities to serve our city, and the Egg Hunt is one of the ways that we get to do that. It's a special day for the families in our community, and we'd love for you to be a part of setting up, tearing down, and really helping to keep the energy up in the egg hunt fields. There's lots of ways to get involved. To make sure you get in on the fun, you can sign up to volunteer on the Hub or phillyegghunt.com. Lastly, on the Hub, you'll find a button where you can give. I wanted to take just a moment to say thank you to everyone who's already given this week. I really hope that you can connect the dots and know that you're a part of lives being changed and people coming to know Jesus. Your giving also supports the ministry that we do here on Sundays and throughout the week. So if you'd like to give today, you can do that on the Hub or on our website, epic.church/give. All right, well, the time has come for us to get better together. So let's get to today's message.
Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Michael. I get the privilege of being the youth pastor here at Epic, and let me just say, I'm so glad you're hanging out with us today. Last week, we kicked off a new series called For Sure, or Faux Show, and we're talking all about faith in this series. We're looking at Hebrews chapter 11 and learning from some of the heroes of the faith, or some of the people throughout the Bible that were celebrated for having great faith. And last week, we kicked off the series by learning that faith is the substance of things hoped for. It's the evidence of things not seen. We learned that without faith, it is impossible to please God. But when we have faith and when we come after God, he rewards those who diligently seek him. Today, we're going to continue this series on faith by talking about what is faith in action. What does it look like to live out our faith on a daily basis? Because I think if most of us are honest, it can be really easy to just go through the motions of faith, right? But not actually let it come to action in our lives, not actually live out what we believe. Because it's one thing to believe something, but it's another thing to actually act on that belief, right? It's one thing to be confident that this will happen. But it's another thing to bet your entire house on it, right? Like, yeah, I'm so confident that I will risk my mortgage of whatever that is to bet that. That's different levels of faith, right? It's one thing to buy a plane ticket because you believe the plane and the pilot will get you where you're going safely. But it's a complete other thing when that turbulence hits, right? I don't know about you, but I'm gripping the seat for dear life because in that moment, my life depends on it, right? It's one thing to believe, but it's another thing to have faith in the moment, to be at peace and to trust the outcome. It's one thing to have faith. Even if that isn't faith in Jesus, it's one thing to believe in something, but it's another thing to let that belief impact the way you live your life. And the book of James actually tells us that faith without action, without putting our faith into deeds, that kind of faith is dead. The Bible is very clear all throughout Scripture that our faith should change who we are. It should affect the way we live and the way we see the world. Faith should always be put into action. So what does faith in action look like? How do we actually live out this kind of faith? Well, the author of Hebrews gives us several examples of that. Starting with Enoch, like we talked about a little bit last week, there are several examples of hey, this is what it looks like to live out your faith. And we're going to look at a few of those today. But before we do, I want to give you a little background on the book of Hebrews. So Hebrews is written to Jewish people that are spread all throughout the world. And they're Hebrews they're Jewish people that are now Christians. They now believe in Jesus as Messiah. And because of that belief, they're being brutally persecuted for their faith. Like so much persecution that they're starting to ask the question, is this faith even worth it? Is it worth risking my life to believe this? Do I really need to put my faith in action, or can I just believe it behind the scenes? And the author of Hebrews writes chapter after chapter making the argument that yes, this faith that you have, faith in Jesus, this life-transforming faith, it is worth it completely, without a doubt. And then the author shifts when we get to Hebrews 11 and starts talking about if this faith is indeed worth it, what should it look like? That's where we're going to jump in Hebrews 11, starting in verse 7. It says, "It was by faith that Noah built a large boat to save his family from the flood. He obeyed God, who warned him about things that had never happened before." So we start off right here in Hebrews chapter 7, and it tells us that obedience is faith in action. That's what we see here. It says Noah obeyed God. Obedience is faith in action. So God shows up to Noah, right, and says, "Hey, Noah, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to build me a boat, but not just any boat. This boat was huge. Bible scholars estimate it's over 40,000 square feet. Imagine that. And God comes to Noah and he's like, "Hey, Noah, I need you to build me this massive boat." Put yourself in Noah's shoes here for a minute. Because first of all, what's a boat? Noah had never seen a boat, never heard of a boat, never ridden in a boat before. God shows up and says, "Hey, build this thing for me." And Noah's like, cool, but what is this thing? Then on top of that, Noah's probably like, "You want me to build this big thing that I've never heard of by myself? Like, I need some help. This thing is huge." And it had to be built a specific way using specific materials. God said, "Hey, I need you to build this boat using this stuff this way, and I need you to do it now." Put yourself in Noah's shoes there. Like, God, you want me to do what? And it gets worse because I'm sure somewhere along the way, Noah was like, "Hey, God, cool. Yeah, I got you. I'll do this because you're telling me to, but why do I need to build this massive wooden structure again?" And God's like, oh, that's easy because it's going to rain and flood the entire earth. Nice. Got it. Okay. God, what's rain? He had no preconception of what rain even was. That's why it says here that this had never happened before. God warned him of something. He had no understanding of what was happening. In this time of the world, water came from the ground up, not from the sky down. So when God shows up and says, hey, water's going to fall from the sky, that's going to be a whole thing. You're going to need a boat to survive. Noah's probably like, huh? That would be like someone today knocking on your door being like, hey, listen, you're going to need to go buy a massive shovel because in just a few days, dirt's going to start falling from the sky and you're going to need to dig yourself out. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, we've never experienced that before. That's what Noah is going through in this moment. He's being told to do something that doesn't make any sense to him, that he has no experience with. And so what does he do? He does what God asked him to do. He obeys. He puts his faith into action. And I'm sure that wasn't easy because, again, he has no data to pull from. And then he's got people in his village walking by like, oh, there goes Noah, the crazy guy who's building a so-called boat because it's going to rain. Imagine day in and day out, the grind and just the work of building this thing on top of the mockery that he became. And day and day and day for years, he continues to take steps of obedience because that's what faith does. Faith in action is obedient. Even when it's not easy, even when it doesn't really seem to make sense on the surface, it trusts that God, who is greater than all things, is telling us something because he wants what's best for us, even if we can't see it in the moment. So my question is, what is God asking of you? And are you willing to be obedient? Because again, I'm sure somewhere along the way, Noah probably started to doubt, probably started to think, man, I've been doing this for a really long time and I haven't seen a drop of this rain. I'm sure Noah got tired of his family being the laughingstock of the community. I'm sure it would have been easier to just kind of check out and been like, yeah, I was obedient at first, but somewhere along the way, it just kind of didn't really seem worth it. But that's not what Noah did. God gave Noah a command, and Noah's response was, for sure. Noah, will you build this boat for me? For sure. Noah, will you do it this way? For sure. Will you stay faithful even when it gets hard and just trust that what I'm telling you to do is for your benefit? For sure. Because faith in action simply answers, for sure. Hear me today. Faith in action. Its simple answer is, for sure. So my question is, what is God asking of you? And what's your response? When God asks something of you, are you able to say, for sure? Or are you like, I'm not so sure? When God asks you to be generous with your time and your resources to help advance the mission of the church, is your answer for sure? When God asks you to be more intentional about the time you're spending with your family, is your answer for sure? When God asks for all of you, holding nothing back, is your answer for sure? Or is your answer, well, God, yeah, I love you and all, but I'd really like to keep this part of me over here. Like, this is just for me. Like, you can have this part. This is fine. You can have this. But God, I'm trying to keep this for me. That's not obedience. That's not faith in action. That's not for sure. That's kinda. Can I have all of you? No, but you can have part of me. You can kinda have me. It's not what faith does. Faith is obedience. Faith simply answers for sure. And we keep going and we find out that faith isn't just obedience. There's more to faith. So let's keep going by jumping down to verse 24. It says, by faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking forward. He was looking ahead to his reward. By faith, he left Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He persevered because he saw him who was invisible. Moses' life teaches us that perseverance is faith in action. So we've got Moses born as a baby, a Hebrew baby, at a time when all Hebrew babies were being killed. So in an effort to preserve his life, his mom puts him in a basket and sends him down a river, hoping that someone can find him and protect him. And that's exactly what happens. Someone does find him, but it's not just some stranger, some random person. It's Pharaoh's daughter. So in a moment, baby Moses goes from being a hunted slave to the grandson of the most powerful man on the planet. Think about how easy it would have been for him to just coast through life. I mean, you have all your needs met. You're living in a palace. You can do what you want, when you want, how you want. Life for Moses just got easy, filled with pleasure and anything he could ever ask for. But that's not the life he chose. It says instead of choosing a life of temporary pleasure and sin, he chose a different way. He chose the way of Jesus. He chose the God way. And that came with persecution, that came with pain, that separated him from all the good things that he could have easily had. And instead, it made his life difficult. But what did he do? Did he give up? Did he like, I made the wrong choice. Mommy, please, can I go back? Please, mommy. No, that's not what he did. He persevered. He remained faithful because he saw the most crazy line, right? He saw him who was invisible. Moses had an understanding that this temporary pain was nothing compared to the glory that God had in store for him. So when difficulties came, when it got hard, when life was just kind of, Moses continued to press on. He continued to put his faith in action. He continued to persevere because that's what faith does. It perseveres. It keeps going. It keeps the faith. It trusts that God is working all things for the good of those who love him. So Moses, every day, after trial after trial after trial, trusts that God is for him. He continues to persevere through it all. The book of James actually tells us that perseverance grows our faith in such a way that we don't need anything. And that's exactly what happened for Moses. He went from a slave boy to the grandson of a king to the leader of a nation because God had a plan for him, and he persevered to see that plan through. Perseverance is faith in action. So growing up, I was a pretty big fan of Star Wars, like a really big fan. And I actually think that The Phantom Menace was one of the first movies I ever saw in theaters. And that's the first movie of the prequels. For any of my non-nerds out there that's like, what in the world is a Phantom Menace? I get it. It's a Star Wars movie. It's one of the first ones I saw as a kid in theaters. And I loved it. Fell in love with the series, fell in love with the movie. And got to the point where I had to be a Jedi. And if you're going to be a Jedi, you have to have a lightsaber. So I asked for my first lightsaber. It looked a little bit something like this. And when I got this thing, let me tell you, I was stoked. Like, young Michael, this is the best gift you could have given him. This changed my life forever. I could not imagine what my life was going to be like when I received my first lightsaber. I pushed the button to turn it on, threw it out, and disappointment flooded my face because this is not a lightsaber. This is plastic. Young Michael was expecting a sword made out of laser beams that could cut through literally anything. And what I got was this, a plastic toy. Disappointment flooded my face. I was like, but Mom, this isn't what I asked for. I don't think you understand. Like, I wanted a lightsaber, not a plastic saber. Like, you bought me the wrong thing, Mom. And that's when I learned a very sad lesson. Lightsabers aren't real. There is no sword that shoots out a laser beam that can cut through anything. The best I could do was this plastic toy version. This knockoff. And that was upsetting. It was disappointing to know that I'll never actually be able to do what I see people in the movies do. And I really think if we're not careful, we can view our faith the same way. We can hear these amazing stories about Enoch and Noah and Moses and just be like, wow, that is amazing for them. But it's not real for me. I could never do that. I could never measure up to that. All I have is this cheap knockoff version of their faith. It's not real for me. And if we're not careful, that's how our faith will be viewed, and it will have an impact on our lives. We'll go from believing to not really believing because we can hear these stories and kind of check out. We can hear stories of their faith, of their perseverance, of how they obeyed God no matter what the circumstances, how they always trusted the Lord and how He always came through. We can see that and just be in awe of the story. But we can't relate. Because, I mean, after all, this is known as the Hall of Faith, right? The Hall of Fame of faith. And they don't let just anyone into halls of fames. You have to be special. You have to be above the rest. To be honest with you, I was a pretty good football player growing up, like well above average. You're not going to find me in Canton. I've never even been to Canton because I'm not as good as those people. They're better than me in every way. And I think we can hear stories like this. And if we're not careful, it'll actually make us feel less than because we can't measure up. We're just cheap versions of the real thing. And what will end up happening is we won't actually persevere. Trials will come, difficulties will come, and we'll just kind of check out. We'll start asking the question, much like the Hebrew people, is this even worth it? Is this life of following Jesus and loving Him, is this even worth it? Because it's great and all for them, but it doesn't seem to be working for me. If we're not careful, we can look at these stories and hear these stories, these amazing stories that are meant to bring us hope and joy. And they can cause our faith to drift because we just don't feel like we can measure up. But look what verse 30 says. So we jump down a little bit more. Verse 30 says, it was by faith that the people of Israel marched around Jericho for 7 days and the walls came crashing down. This verse right here shows us that confidence is faith in action. Did you catch what it said there? It said the people of Israel, not some superpowered faith-filled person, not a Hall of Famer, a group of people. And honestly, a kind of messed up group of people. These are people that had failed God over and over again. I mean, they built fake idols to worship because they weren't sure they could trust God. They let fear overcome their faith on more than one occasion. There are multiple times where they actually are disobedient and not obedient, which is faith in action. But still, they're mentioned here as heroes of the faith. Why? Because of their confidence in God. Their leader, Joshua, comes to them and says, hey guys, I've got the craziest military plan of all time. Instead of going into Jericho and invading and fighting and winning a battle, we're just going to walk around the city. We're just going to walk and walk for days. And on the seventh day, we're going to shout. And then God's going to do the rest. And that's exactly what they did Why? Because it was a brilliant military strategy? Nah, not a great military strategy. They did it because they were confident that God actually would do the rest, that he would show up, that he would be faithful, that he would come through. And that's exactly what he did. The thing about faith is it's not about anything we can do. It's all about what God can do. And somewhere along the way, these people understood that we can't do this. That was very clear. But they were confident that the God they served could, that he would be faithful, that he would come through, that he would open the door that no one could open, that he would get them to where they needed to be because he wanted what's best for them. They were confident that God was who he says he was, and he would do what he says he will do. They put their faith into action and trusted God with the rest. And God came through. So I actually had the opportunity to earn a college scholarship to play football, and it was great. It was my childhood dream. So this coming true, being able to go to school, paid for, and play football, that was like my lifelong dream. Then to make it even better, my best friend was coming to school with me to be my roommate. And I've heard some horror stories about college roommates, so I didn't have to worry about that. This is like a cherry on top. This was going to be an amazing 4 years. And then 3 months in, I hated it. It was awful. I hated school. I hated life. I hated football. I hated it all. And one night, literally crying myself to sleep, I had one of the most authentic moments with God. And he said, if you'll just trust me and walk away, I've got you. So that's what I did. And it's crazy, right? Because I'm a broke college student. Do you know how much college costs? Having it paid for and then walking away from that does not make sense. But I was confident that God would do what he said he would do. If God said, walk away, I've got you, I was confident that he had me. And he did. Because truth is, I wouldn't be standing here today had I not trusted God in that moment. I wouldn't have become a pastor. I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have had my family. Every step of the way, God has been faithful. And I just had to be confident that that was true. I had to be confident that God does not fail. I just had to put my faith in action and simply answer, for sure. I had to be obedient. I had to be confident. Because that's what faith does. And the thing about faith is it's not on you. The people in Hebrews 11 were broken people, just like us. They didn't have any superpowers. They just had faith in the one who does. They were confident that he would come through, that he would not fail them. Their faith, they're listed here because they knew when asked the question, is this faith thing worth it? Their answer was for sure. Because God comes through every time. Even when we don't see it, even when it feels like we have to persevere to get there, we can be confident knowing that he is good and faithful and he comes through. So my question for you is, are you confident in that? Are you confident that God will come through? Think about it like a chair for me real quick. When you sit down in a chair, you don't investigate the chair. You don't make sure there's no screws loose. You don't call the number on the back to make sure the manufacturer is a good, trustworthy manufacturer. No, you just sit down because you have confidence that the chair will hold you up, because you have experience knowing chairs hold you up. But are you confident that God will do the same? Are you confident that he will hold you up? Because what happens so many times is we're not. We can be confident that he's out there, that he exists, but we're not actually confident in his character. that he comes through, that he loves us genuinely. So what happens so many times is we end up cheating at work because we're not actually confident that God will provide for us. We don't actually work on our marriage during conflict and difficult times because we're not actually confident that God can bring restoration. We'll stop praying because we're not confident that God hears us. And if he does, we're not really confident that he cares. And slowly our faith begins to fade away. But what would happen if we would instead put our faith into action and we were confident that God actually was who he said he was? He actually was the all-powerful creator of the universe who works all things for the good of those who love him. What would happen if we began to live out our faith? We began to let it affect the way we see the people around us. We began to trust God that he can and will get us through. What would happen if we began to live out our faith? What would happen if when asked the question, is this faith thing worth it? Will God come through? What if our only answer was for sure? Because faith in action, it simply answers for sure. So I don't know where you're at on your faith journey today, but I want to challenge you. Let's put our faith in action. Let's be obedient to what God is calling us to do. Let's persevere when things get tough because let's be real, they do. Life isn't always easy. But let's trust that God is working for our benefit. And let's be confident that he controls the outcome and that he actually does work all things for the good of those who love him. And maybe you're here today and you're like, Michael, I didn't even know God was like that. Honestly, I don't even know that I believed in his existence or his character in the first place. But maybe today you're hearing this and you're like, maybe God actually does love me. Maybe putting my faith in Jesus actually is worth it. Maybe you want to take that first step of putting your faith in action by just choosing to follow Jesus, choosing to give your life to him. If that's you today, I'm going to invite you to say this prayer with me. There's nothing super special about the words. It's just a prayer of surrender saying, God, I need you. Come and lead my life. So if that's you, pray this prayer with me. Jesus, I need you. I am broken and I need help. And now I see that the help I need is you. So will you come? Will you lead my life? Will you forgive me of the times I've messed up? Will you help me follow you from this point forward as I put my faith into action? God, come, lead my life. In Jesus' name, amen and amen. Hey, if you prayed that prayer for the first time today, I want to be the first person to celebrate you. That is amazing. That is the best step you will take in your life, period, hands down, because you just put confidence in God. That's amazing. Hey, if you did pray that prayer for the first time, I want to encourage you to go onto the hub. When you text it in, you should have got a link to the hub. There's a button that says follow Jesus. Click that because we'd love to come alongside you and partner with you on this journey. So we're all putting our faith into action. So hit that button for me. That would be amazing. Well, hey, we're so glad you joined us for part 2 of For Sure. We can't wait to see you back here next week for part 3. Love you guys.
Such a great message, Michael. I'm pumped up. I don't know about you, but I want that kind of faith that builds boats when there's no rain in sight. God hasn't called us to a casual, surface level kind of faith. He's called us to be all in, fully devoted to him in all areas of our lives so that we can reach our full potential. For sure, for sure. See what God can do in and through you. And if you've made that decision today to follow Jesus, we couldn't be more excited for you. Be sure to let us know on the hub by clicking the button that says follow Jesus. I would love to celebrate with you and also get you some information so you can continue taking steps in your faith. And thanks so much for being here today. Before you go, would you take time to like, comment, and share this video so we can continue to reach more and more people? You know, if it was encouraging to you, chances are it could encourage someone else, so be sure to share it. And I can't wait to see all of you right back here next week.